Alright guys, so yesterday we went on a waterfall trip and it was really nice, especially seeing such a huge waterfalls from above and from a close distance. But now I'm back in the hotel, sitting on the ground of our balcony, because this is the only camera setup that I could come up with, because I forgot my tripod at home and only have a small gorilla pod. And the tallest thing in our room is this little table that is just underneath my camera, so I'm sitting on the ground. Today I would like to answer a question that I got asked by quite a lot of people in the past few months. And that question is, how do I select my subjects for the videos? So there's a few different steps to the process that I do. And the first step is an interest. So it all starts with interest. I can give you an example. Currently I'm working on a film about a fixed gear cyclist who's also a messenger here in Buenos Aires. And the reason why I picked this topic is because I'm naturally interested in it. I used to ride bicycles a lot when I was younger. I was doing BMX, I was riding dirt jump bikes. And so naturally I have a connection to this world, and that basically made me want to make a film about it. Now, another way how I select my subjects could be an example of Victorian. I did a film about Victorian last year in Bali, and I wasn't interested in the topic in the first place, but I got to meet Victorian through a common friend. I got to talk with him and I got interested in the topic as I was getting to know him. And I just wanted to make a film about what he does because I felt like it's something that is worth sharing. Now the second step that I usually do is consciously looking for a story. In other words, doing your research. So again, if I give you a real life example, for the film about the cyclist that I'm working on right now, I had this topic in mind for maybe 8 or 9 months. I was trying to find someone in Switzerland who would be a good subject, but I didn't manage to find anyone. And then when I knew that I'm going to be in Buenos Aires for 2 months, I went online and I did some research on single speed community in Buenos Aires. And I found an article on Peloton magazine's website. It was about a photographer who also rides fixies. And he was here in Buenos Aires for a while and he was documenting the scene. And through that article, I found a spot. It's a shop and a cafe where the cyclists usually meet. I connected with the owner of the shop. I told him about my idea, and then when I arrived to Buenos Aires, we've met, we've grabbed a coffee. And from there, it kind of evolved. You know, I got immersed in the community. I've met Anderson, who's now the subject of the video, and so on. But without the previous research, this would never happen. Now, step 3 is probably the most important step for me, and that is connection. I really need to click with the subject in order to be able to tell their story authentically and in order to be invested in the project. And it already happened to me a few times that I would meet someone who would be a good subject for a film, but there would be no connection on a personal level. And then for me it's very difficult to go and to spend time with that person, to get to know them, to make a film about them, because in reality, you know, you need to be interested in the person that you're making the film about. So you put enough effort and you really take time to get to understand where they're coming from and what is their story and when they're going. Now we come down to the 4th step of searching for subject. And this is, I would say, on the same level of importance as the step number 3, the personal connection. And that is, does this subject actually have a story? So once I have someone I want to make a film about, I meet with them, I go for a coffee, and I try to ask them questions. You know, I try to get to know them, try to see, as I said before, where they're coming from, and try to find a story within their life. Sometimes this might not be obvious in the first place, and that's why the personal connection is important here, because if you connect with that person previously, you really want to go and you want to dig deeper and see if you can find a story that maybe is hidden within. Now there's few things that I'm looking for in my subject when it comes down to the story, and that's either the subject is very dedicated to something, whether that's a sport, it's a craft, it's a lifestyle, it's a mission. If you have a subject who has a dedication, that means they also have a goal. And that already makes a really good story, because if you have a goal, usually there's some obstacles that you need to overcome. And so the film can be about them trying to overcome the obstacles to get to their goal through the dedication that they have to a certain activity. Another angle could be if they have a tragedy in their life and they're trying to overcome the tragedy. Again, it's an obstacle that they're trying to get over. And then two more attributes that I'm looking for could be either a unique skill that is hard to find or a controversy about the subject. These two criteria also make for great stories. And then what I'm always trying to find within the whole story is some sort of a universal truth. So when the viewer finishes watching the movie or the film, what are they gonna take from that? Are they gonna learn something? Are they gonna, maybe the universal truth is that no matter what the obstacle is, you can always overcome it, right? That could be one. Another universal truth could be what goes around comes around. And so a universal truth is a very good connection element to your audience, because once they finish watching the movie, they will actually they will walk away from the screen with something, with a certain feeling or with a certain truth. The step number 5 for me, and that's something that I kind of experienced recently as well, is am I able to tell this story effectively? And what I mean by that, I'll give you an example again. In the case of the film I'm making about the cyclist, he's Spanish, I don't speak Spanish. So that's one obstacle that I had to overcome. That means that for all the interviews, I need to have someone who speaks Spanish, who's good at interviewing people, and who has a good idea of the story that we're trying to tell here. Another obstacle that we had is that because he's busy working as a messenger, he only has time on Sundays. And that is a little bit tricky, because that means that I need to book enough time to be able to film all the footage that I need. And if I can only film every Sunday, and let's say I need 4 or 5 days, I either have to stay for 4 or 5 weeks or try to find a solution. But I'm sure that, with some films, there might be obstacles that you're not able to overcome, and then maybe it's not a good idea to tell the story at this point. And so these are the steps that I always try to kind of check before I start making a film. Step 1 starts with the interest. If you are interested in some topic or in a person, then that's a good beginning. Step 2 is research. You have to be consciously looking for the story. Maybe you have a list of the films that you want to create or the topics that you want to create, and so you need to be searching for the stories within those topics. Step 3, very important for me, is a connection on a personal level, because I want to get to know the person. I want to get to know how they live, what they feel, what they go through. And without that, I'm not able to get myself invested in the film. Step 4, is there an actual story, right? If you have a topic or you have a person, you need to find a story within. So the film is not just about the topic. For example, it's not just about cycling, but there's an actual story within the topic of cycling. And the last step, step 5 for me, is asking myself if I'm able to tell this story effectively. So this is my process right now, and it works really well for me, but I'm sure that as I'm gonna grow as a filmmaker, this process is gonna evolve as well. And I hope that maybe you can take something from this process, or maybe you can try it yourself. And as you grow as a filmmaker, you can add things, or you can take out things that don't work for you, and then eventually you will come up with your own process that might be inspired by this process or might be completely different. But the most important thing is that it works for you. And that's basically it for today. I hope you liked this video. If you did, I would be extremely happy if you consider subscribing to the channel, because it helps a lot. And I'll see you in the next one. Cheers!